You need to make sure that you have your assignment open and ready to move through the tabs as we work on the assignment. So if you need to, pause the video, go to your Canvas, and open up the assignment for Casey at the Bat theme. Once you have it ready in a tab, you can hit resume. Today's focus skill is to analyze how a particular sentence or stanza fits into the overall structure of a text and contribute to the development of the theme. So when you analyze something, you're studying, you're breaking it down into parts to figure out how it fits. So you might be asking yourself, what's the structure? I have no idea. Well, the structure is how the lines or ideas in a poem are organized. So each line or stanza has its place in a poem. And you need to put all those stanzas or lines together to figure out the meaning and to find the theme or the message that the author is trying to convey. So in our poem, Casey at the Bat, the structure of the poem is set up in stanzas. And each stanza has 4 lines. So think about what each stanza means. So ask yourself, what's the main idea of each stanza? And we're going to be working on this together. Then, taken together, these main ideas develop the poem's theme. So remember, when you're trying to figure out the theme, you have to think of who's the main character in the poem or story, and maybe how that character changes or how the events change in the poem. So we're going to move to slide 2. And on slide 2, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the poem and refresh our memory and think about the main idea of each stanza. Casey at the Bat by Ernest Lawrence Thayer. The outlook wasn't brilliant for the Mudville Nine that day. The score stood 4-2, but with 1 inning more to play. And so when Casey died at first and Burroughs did the same, a sickly silence fell upon the patrons of the game. So the summary, the main idea of this stanza is that it's the last inning of the game, and the Mudville Nine are losing. Cooney and Burroughs went at the bat, but they were both out at first base. So now they have 2 outs, and the fans are afraid they're going to lose the game. A straggling few got up in deep despair. The rest clung to the hope which springs eternal in the human breast. They thought, if only Casey could get but a whack at that, we'd put up even money now with Casey at the bat. So the main idea of this stanza, we have a few fans left the game because they thought the game was over. They thought they lost. But the rest of the fans had hope that if Casey could get a chance to bat, they would win the game, and they would even bet money on it. But Flynn preceded Casey, as did also Jimmy Blake, and the former was a pudding while the latter was a cake. So on that stricken multitude, a death-like silence sat, for there seemed but little chance of Casey getting the bat. So in this stanza, the fans realize that Flynn and Jimmy Blake have to bat before Casey, and they're not good players. And they get really quiet because they realize Casey probably will not get to bat, and they're going to probably lose the game. But Flynn let drive a single to the wonderment of all, and the much despised Blake tore the cover off the ball. And when the dust had lifted and the men saw what had occurred, there was Blakey safe at second and Flynn a hugging third. So the summary of this stanza is that Flynn and Jimmy Blake both hit the ball, to the surprise of the fans. And Flynn was on third base and Jimmy Blake was on second base. And now Casey comes to bat. From the gladdened multitude went up a joyous yell. It rumbled in the mountaintop, it rattled in the dell. It struck upon the hillside and rebounded on the flat, where Casey, mighty Casey, was advancing to the bat. So the crowd is really happy when they realize Casey was next to bat. Then with ease in Casey's manner as he stepped into his place, there was pride in Casey's bearing and a smile on Casey's face. And when responding to the cheers, he lightly doffed his hat. No stranger in the crowd could doubt 'twas Casey at the bat. So when Casey stands at the bat, he's very confident, and he hears the crowd cheering for him, so he Doss takes off his hat and smiles. The 1,000 eyes were on him as he rubbed his hands with dirt, for 1,000 tongues applauded when he wiped them on his shirt. Then while the writhing pitcher ground the ball into his hip, defiance flashed in Casey's eye, a sneer curled Casey's lip. So the fans are watching Casey and they're cheering for him. The pitcher is nervous, he's getting ready to throw the ball, and Casey's arrogant. He's got this snarl on his face. He's waiting for the pitch. He's confident knowing that he can get a hit. And now the leather-covered sphere came hurling through the air, and Casey stood a-watching it in haughty grandeur there. Close by the sturdy batsman, the ball, and it sped. That ain't my style, said Casey. Strike one, the umpire said. So Casey watched the first pitch go by across the plate, and he doesn't even swing. He says the ball's not good enough for him. And the pitch was a strike. The umpire called it a strike. So now there's strike one. From the benches filled the people, there went up a muffled roar, like the beating of the storm waves on a stern and distant shore. Kill him! Kill the umpire! Shouted someone in the stands, and it's likely they'd have killed him had not Casey raised his hand. So the crowd is really angry that the umpire called it a strike. And Casey actually calms the crowd down by raising his hand and letting them know, hey, one strike, that's not a problem. With a smile of honest charity, great Casey's visage shone. He stilled the rising tumult, he made the game go on. He signaled to the pitcher, and once more the spheroid flew. But Casey still ignored it, and the umpire said, strike two. So Casey signals to the pitcher that he's ready, and the pitcher throws the ball again. And again, Casey's proud and arrogant, and he ignores the ball again, and the umpire calls strike two. Fraud, calls the maddened thousands, and the echo answered fraud. But one scornful look from Casey, and the audience was awed. They saw his face grow stern and cold. They saw his muscles strain, and they knew that Casey wouldn't let that ball go by again. So the crowd is angry at the umpire again for calling strike two. And the crowd sees that Casey's getting in batting position, and they're sure he's going to hit the ball this time. And when they see his face, they calm down. The sneer is gone from Casey's lips. His teeth are clenched in hate. He pounds with cruel vengeance his bat upon the plate. And now the pitcher holds the ball, and now he lets it go, and now the air is shattered by the force of Casey's blow. So Casey's mad. Now he realizes he has two strikes. So he hits the bat on the plate really hard. The pitcher throws the ball, and Casey swings as hard as he can. Oh, somewhere in this favored land, the sun is shining bright. The band is playing somewhere, and somewhere hearts are light. And somewhere men are laughing, and somewhere children shout. But there is no joy in Mudville. Mighty Casey has struck out. So there's happiness somewhere, but it's not at the baseball game, because Casey struck out, and the fans are miserable because they actually lost the game. So taking those main ideas from each of the stanzas, we want to think about Casey, our main character. And we have some text on slide 5. We have text evidence. We actually have lines from the poem. And you want to read them, and you want to think, Casey was arrogant. He was proud. And you want to think to yourself, which one of these, there are 3 statements that show that Casey is arrogant. And so what you want to do is you want to drag your text boxes over the 3 pieces of text evidence that shows that Casey's proud. Now, I know that one, Casey says, that ain't my style, Casey said. Strike one, the umpire said. So when Casey says, that ain't my style, that's showing that he's very arrogant and proud, like that pitch is not good enough for me. You need to go ahead, if you need to pause this, go ahead and so that you can drag your text box over the one that I just did, and then resume when you're ready. And then there are 2 more that prove that Casey is arrogant and proud. So you have to think of Casey's actions and the way he looks and the way his body language is. I'm not going to help you with any more. I want you to drag the text boxes over the 2 more pieces of text evidence that shows he is arrogant. Go ahead and try it by yourself. And then I'm going to give you a couple minutes. You can pause the video. After you drag, resume the video so we can move on. Okay, hopefully you also put your text box around defiance flashed in Casey's eye, a sneer curled Casey's lip, because that shows me that he's arrogant by his eyes and his lips. And then one more that talks about Casey being arrogant is after strike 1, he still ignored the second pitch. So Casey still ignored it, and the umpire said strike 2. Those are the 3 pieces of text evidence that you should have put boxes around. If you did not get these, please pause the video, make corrections, and then resume to go to the next part. So now that we have our 3 pieces of text evidence, you are going to take at least 2 of these. There are 3. You can use all 3, but you do not have to. But you have to use at least 2 of these and explain how the author uses this arrogance to send a message or teach a lesson to the reader about the consequences of being too arrogant. So if we look at the question down here, how does the author use Casey's arrogance, Casey's proudness, to teach the reader a lesson about the consequences of being too arrogant? So the consequences is like the effect of something. So you think of it as a cause and effect. The cause is you're arrogant and proud. The effect is what? Did they win the game or did they lose the game? That's how you have to think about this. And so you are going to answer the question using race. And you have to use at least 2 of these pieces of text evidence in your response, telling us how Casey's arrogance teaches the reader a lesson about the consequences of being too arrogant. Once you type this answer, you're going to go back to the tab that has the blue check mark. You're going to click on that, and you're going to click submit.